this stuff. Even if somebody can tell you these words, and these words too, for example, imagine being the best version of yourself. Why won't those people do that? Like, why isn't everyone in the best shape ever?
I think a lot of it has to do with the culture that's been instilled in these last, like, I don't know how many years, but just the instant gratification, right? People don't want to delay gratification, and it's just getting worse. It's just becoming more and more of a like chronic, like stream of influence from the media, from all these new, social media channels, TikTok. It's everyone wants everything in bite sized and they want it now. And it's hard, I think, for people to get out of that when it's been pushed on them for so long. And it's a hard question to answer, because I am similarly minded with you. I have always had a very positive mindset. I feel very fortunate that that's been the case. I know that there are people out there who, maybe there's chemical imbalances. There's things that they are already predisposed, or they have these like pre-existing conditions because of their health or the way they grew up or whatever it is. And to be able to become more open-minded and become more positive-minded it's not an easy thing. And that's one of the reasons I love Scivive so much, is because Richard often, like, over and over talks about changing your frame of mind from the negative to the positive. And that's such an important principle to put into your life. And I hope that more people will read Scivive and will understand that and bring themselves around to this power of positivity mindset and that framework, instead of staying stuck in this place where, like, you just kind of have blinders on and you're only focusing on the negative and you're only focusing on, what isn't happening for you. You are the master of your reality. You get to make your future. And I think people have been, maybe they feel like their power has been taken away from them for one reason or another. And I definitely personally have gone through a huge growth spurt with that in the last year, feeling now that I've become more personally empowered in, who I am and what it is that I'm doing in the world. And a lot of that is thanks to Richard and thanks to Hex and thanks to this community. I feel like I have so much more purpose than I did a year ago. And I'm so grateful that I get to be around people who are like-minded and who, like yourself and, myself, we're trying to uplift other people, just us having this conversation, who knows what the ripple effect could be. I'm hoping that people out there who are not feeling well or are not, doing so good right now, get to hear our words and understand that, hey, you're not alone. And, we're all in this together. And this community is so open to discussion, right? We're so open to working things out and talking through things regardless of what the topic is. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to be a part of. So yeah, long answer to that question, but it's hard. It's a difficult thing for so many people. And I've seen people be like self-deprecating and this and that, and it's hard. I just read something last night in Scivive where Richard said something to the effect of, you can't, it's hard to tell a person that they're doing something wrong, because they don't see it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to, the similar phrase, talk a man out of doing something that his salary depends on too. Like if they have all the incentives to do something, such as a paycheck, such as whatever, they're going to be doing that. They're going to fight you. They're going to be very defensive. Otherwise, if you try to change their mind, even if it's obviously the better route or the better choice for them. You mentioned framing. I had a conversation recently where somebody said, oh, it looks like you have a busy day. And to me, it's like, I don't even think that's the right way to look at it. Busy, it just seems that has this like negative connotation to it. I try to stay away from busy. Because busy, to me, it's just, if I'm planning a day and there's a lot of stuff going on, I'm streaming, I'm going to the park, I'm going to the lake, whatever. And I got a lot of stuff going on. To me, that's not busy. To me, that's just a fun day. It's not work. Like I think of work, I relate work and busy, and work as in something someone else is telling you to do, not the work you're doing yourself. because if you're doing the work yourself, if I'm doing all the creative stuff, I can tell other people I'm working, but I'm not really working. I'm creating. I'm playing. Like, that's what you want. Naval talks about that too. You want what you're doing to look like work, but to you it's play. So other people will pay you to do it, or other people like what you're doing, or whatever. The ideal situation is that, but then it's play to you, because to you you're just having fun. You're just creating. And then, so that's the framing part. And then what I think a lot of people struggle with too is accountability. Another Naval quote. I know we're talking about Scivive, but I'll throw a couple Naval quotes while we're here. You are responsible for everything you think and feel. Like, you have to take responsibility for that and really own it. Like, if you let other people make you feel bad, I know there's a balance to these things, but if it's up to you. Like, you have the power. Like, if you believe yourself to be a sovereign individual who has got their stuff together, is able to do the things they want to do when they want to do them, and just able to control yourself. If you think you have control of your life and your body and your mind and your peace and all these other ways, why would you let anyone else change that for you? Why would you let them affect that in a negative way, in ways you don't want them to? So that's something I've you can almost use it as an affirmation of, like, if you're going through a tough time or whatever, I think I'm responsible for everything I think and feel. So I think that's a thing that you can use to tell yourself I'm accountable. Like, it goes both ways. You can't be accountable when you want to. You got to be accountable all the time to yourself, and that's what builds confidence, self-esteem, like your self-sovereignty, your real self-sovereignty.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's I'm really glad that those are the first words of the deal. Imagine, because I think that's really drew me to it too. Once I read that, I was like, yes, I'm looking for that. I found Richard at a time where I needed a mentor in crypto, and it didn't hurt to have a mentor in life as well. And like, Sci-Fi was perfect for that. This man showed up at the right time in that way. So we'll go through a couple, and then I wrote a lot in this blog, as you can see. And this is one of three. So let me go back to the blog here. So I went over Mind, Body, Spirit, plus the intro, and then Money, Power, Respect, Space, Events, Longevity. So I'll just scroll, kind of pick one. We'll talk about it for a sec and then go on. But again, if anyone wants to follow along, I'll drop the yes, Finbear, accountable. Accountable? No, I did not say accountable, or I didn't mean to say accountable. Anybody wants to follow along, you can go to the blog. And then let's see, I'm just going to randomly scroll. And what's this one? Actually, funny enough, I think I've heard you do some of these recently. Like this one. Didn't you do a thing at any given moment? There's an infinite amount of good and bad things going on. Yeah, I feel like I've heard you go over that one before. Trying to see, so you can see, like, with these are the quotes, and this is my commentary at the time when I was going through them. Yeah, definitely heard you go over that one before. Make sure fit. This might be a good one too. Yeah, this kind of reminds me of you, actually, Esther. Curious people, because you got to be curious to get into stuff. You really do. Like,
absolutely.
Not like, why hasn't everyone in the world read these books? Like, not just because we haven't been able to scale it to those people yet. We don't have them in print yet. Besides that fact,
right.
Just if you gave it to them, if you took the print version of the book and you put it in their hands, 99% of people would never look at it. They would give it away later on. They would be nice. They would accept it. I've given people books. I've given people books on Hex before, and I've given it to them, and I know they're not going to read it. Like, I can just tell by their reaction, they're never going to read it. And we never have a conversation afterwards about it. So I guess what is I'll read the quote. Curious people get really smart. By definition, we must learn about the topic in question, and we care about it. So we'll watch a 2-hour video about the boring topic, and to everyone else, because to use, we must fulfill our curiosity. So yeah, doing the boring stuff, like, is curiosity, is that key to being able to just, not even do a fraction of what the research you and I've done for this stuff, but just to read the book, to read a chapter, to listen to the audiobook for 2 or 3 hours? Like, what gets people into this? Do they need to be looking for something, or are they just, like, born with this type of curiosity?
I think it's a combo for sure of both of those things. Like, for me, I had already jumped on the Hex bandwagon before I figured out who Richard was or what he was about. And then once I had already invested, and then once I found out about Richard, or like started looking into him more, I was like, okay, if I'm really serious about this and I want to continue to invest in this, I need to know. I was just so curious, especially because of, and it blows my mind that people wouldn't be curious. Like, who wouldn't want to know more about this dude, flashing his Rolls Royce and his Gucci outfits, and don't you kind of want to know like what he's about and like why he's doing these things?
Yeah.
So it's for me, it was, I just have that instilled in myself. Like I'm a constant student of the world. Like I love learning, period. So that curiosity is, something that I've always had. But I would think, you'd think that people would see Richard and be like, what is up with this dude? Like, what is he doing?
Well, you mentioned too, like before you said, a lot of this, when you got into Richard, it changed, I think you said it gave meaning to your life in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you were missing some, that sort of thing? And if so, how did this fill that void?
That's a great question. So I think my instant answer to that, the thing that I think I'm thinking of the most, is that when I started to get into this community and read Scivive, I was doing a lot of things that, like, here's a good example is, like, for me, I was doing acting, right? And I told my agent at the time, I said, I'm not interested in becoming famous. I don't want to do movies or be on a TV show. I just wanted to do background and commercial work, which is what I ended up doing. And it was, it was something that paid the bills, but it wasn't my passion. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't that exciting to me all the time. And when I started on this path reading Scivive, and then really reading Richard's words and the part where he speaks about being your own brand and doing your own thing, that sparked something in me that lit a fire. And I was just like, oh, I want to do that. Like, I want to be, a force for good. And I compare that to acting, because it's like, I want to be able to use my image and my presence and whatever it is that, my essence contributes to the world for good. And I've always had that. I've always wanted to do more and to, be a proponent of something bigger than myself. So it just, everything just started aligning with Hex and, what Richard's saying, and, the fact that I wanted to give a voice to this. So I'm like over the moon now that I get to use my image and my voice and, whatever it is that my personality puts out and puts forth into the world for the good of, honestly, like, at the core of it, DeFi, right? And Hex, because that's going to, if I didn't believe this, I wouldn't be here. I believe it's going to, I think it's going to change the world. I really do. And I believe that that's something that I'm not alone in thinking. Like, I think that's why this community is so big, and that why we're so, tight knit, because we all kind of have this idea in the back of our heads that Hexco is going to be a thing, and we're going to move the agenda of Hex and real true DeFi forward.
Well, how does health, wealth, happiness, how does that go with DeFi? Because at the surface level, you'd think, okay, maybe they're tangentially related. You could see some pros and cons, but for you believe a lot of these works coming from Richard on the side of the wisdom stuff and self-development, there's more of a connection to DeFi. Maybe they're. How do you think that? Like, with, I guess you could look at it this way too. If Scivive fixed the world, if Richard didn't write it, if he didn't publish any of this stuff, he never told anyone about it, how would that affect, the mission with Hex, PulseChain, and everything? How would it affect, and which affects DeFi going forward too? But I guess, what do you think would be different if had these things, never made it on the internet?
I don't know. I don't know. That's kind of tough.
Hitting you with some hard questions this morning.
I know you are. Jeez. Well, I want to kind of go back to what you had said about health, wealth, and happiness. I think that, and this might be answering a different question, but I think that when you look at that in the lens of DeFi, I think that what comes to mind for me is that it's self-help, right? It's DeFi and DYOR, right? Those are such big terms in this community. Doing your own research and decentralization, right? You don't have someone else looking out for you to do this. It's your job to do it. And I think that's a huge reason why the health, wealth, and happiness and, DeFi, that the marriage of that is that it's on you. It's your job to ensure your own health, wealth, and happiness. And in DeFi, it's your job.
The accountability too. I like that. You do the work, right, Rich? You do the work. I love that, like, throwback to accountability as well. You brought up too. Yeah, I think we'd have less hexagons. I think a lot of people hung on.
I think so too.
Yeah, a lot of people are in the community, not just for, like, I'm not in the community just for the wealth. Literally, right. Like, a lot of people, you ask them, I'm here for mad gains. Yeah, I'm here for mad gains too. But if Richard never created Hex or PulseChain or anything, I would still be following Richard. Like, that's not, this is only a part of it. And maybe that's because I've been following him, for years and years. If, maybe that would be the case if I started following him in 2021, because he doesn't talk that much about this stuff anymore. But right. I think he will eventually, once all the ducks are in the row. But I think there'll be less hexagons. And I think that, it's interesting to think about what if Hex never existed? What if he never launched a coin? What if he was still a Bitcoin maxi too? I'd still be reading Scivive. I think that, wow, blowing my mind thinking about this. But yeah, I'm not here only for the mad gains. I'm here for mad gains in the mental health, here for mad gains in the monetary aspect. And just being able to find between Richard and Naval, just really helped me figure out what I want my purpose to be, figure out how to even understand what that means. And how to hit all, I want to hit all the verticals. I want to be really good at life. Like, and to be rich helps me do that. Like, that's just, it's a tool. Like, the money is a tool. The money is not what I want. It's what I need to be, a greater man. So why not pursue it? Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So you got me talking motivational speeches right now. You got me talking. I'll go into, since we, by the voice of you and my new microphone. Maybe that. I really like so I think I asked you this before, but just I can't remember what your answer was. What is some of your must read chapters of Scivive? For me, I'll just say I really like Power, and I really like Power and Respect. Honestly, I think I'm a little biased, like, looking at this wiki or looking at Power and Respect are two of my favorite. And funny enough, I think in life, those are the two most interesting topics to me as well. So maybe that's why they go hand in hand. So I'm a little biased in that way. But yeah, for you, what is your if someone's like, I can only got like a couple hours, which chapter should I read? What would you tell them?
I'm definitely going to agree with you on Power for sure. I'm editing the book right now, and I just finished Power and just started Respect. So those two happen to be like really light, up in my head right now. I honestly, I think I agree. I'm going to reread the rest of them, obviously, as I go along, but there's just so much really, like, perfectly stated information in those two chapters. There's some things in there that are just, it's kind of fluff, or it's not as important, especially when it comes to, like, there's things that the grooming part, and there's some things where he talks about, just like clubbing and like going out with people and like how to how to talk to the girl. But that is a lot of it is actually really good information. And he, I just reread something because I know people, right? So especially with the podcast that he did recently in Florida, and I watched a few of them. I don't think I watched every one of them, but people were, especially some of the ladies in our group were, upset about him talking to these like red pill kind of guys, and a lot of like womanizing type, like they feel that not necessarily Richard, but the people he was speaking with are, of that more like, the game and like, just playing, like being players kind of mindset. But I don't have anything in front of me right now, but there was basically a quote where Richard was talking about how empty that can be, how so many people, so many pickup artists are, empty, and it's not a good thing to do because you're not really fulfilling, what it, and I'm paraphrasing and putting in my own words as well, but to me it seems like he thinks that it's something that he looked into, maybe did it for a while, who knows, maybe he still kind of does stuff like that, but he knows that that's not really the end game, and that's not really what's going to fulfill you.
I think, recently Andrew Tate, for example, has been like all over, I would say all over social media, but it's kind of the opposite since I guess he got banned or so. But I don't know. I think people, like you talked about too, some of the people that Richard talks to, I think that there's a lot of things they do that are helping men and masculinity that don't necessarily take away. Of course, you could take a lot of things they say and go apply them, and then they're bad for women and things like that. But if you're a reasonable person, a reasonable man in this case, and you listen to them, I think you can take it more as confidence and more of just like building yourself up rather than taking away from anyone else. So I think there's a lot of positive that can be gained from some of the things that they talk about. Of course, there's a lot of nasty stuff and a lot of stuff that's just not good long term for anyone. A lot of zero-sum games you can play with that, as you kind of alluded to. But I think in general, if you just take them as a healthy masculinity type of thing and advice in that way, I think there's a lot of good they have done for men out there too. And if you're already the kind of guy who's going to do that kind of stuff, you don't need to go listen to them to get motivated to do it. You're just going to do it anyways. But if you're the type of young man, for example, who is kind of lost and looking for something and needs that kind of that boost in confidence and courage and stuff like that, and how to get the most out of life, you may benefit from them. But if you already have a bad foundation, you're going to take the bad stuff from them. If you have a good foundation, you're going to try and get the positive things from them. So it's a way of saying it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, just there's so many gems, and that's why I love doing the quotes, because I'm just, hey, like get interested in this, like check out, this little nugget. There's so much more in these books than just these little nuggets, and I'm hoping that it entices people to start reading, because it's just, there's some things that I purposefully don't quote or I leave out because they're too good. I'm just like, no, you got to read. You got to get up in here and read this stuff because it's worth your time.
It's if you're interested in clubbing, you can find that in the book, or if you're not, just skip over it. Like when I read it too, I wasn't even in the right I wasn't even in that mindset anyways. I may have been at one point in my life, but I wasn't at the time that I read it. So that part I didn't take anything from. But just the mental models, even if you're not interested in actually performing the actions that he describes, the mental models that he describes, that those actions that you need to know and understand to do this type of things, are useful in other areas too. You can apply them outside of clubbing or things you may or may not be interested in.
Yeah, and that's a cool thing I see too, is that he uses the same principles and gives the same advice, but in different lenses, right? Like romance or finances. Like it's cool to see that he can take these concepts and apply them to different areas of your life. It is repetitive in a way, but in a great way, because it's using some really great trick or some really great piece of advice, and you can apply that to several different areas of your life. And that's what I see and respect a lot. That's why I like that chapter so much, because it's like reminds you over and over again in different ways, like, hey, like this is a way to do this, like you can do it better.
Yeah. Multidisciplinary, learning the best ideas from every field, at least knowing the basics, just give you such a leg up in life. Okay, I'll read this one before we move on. Focus on something that someone else actually cares about that you can solve a problem for. And my commentary here was being the best at juggling or making paper airplanes isn't making the world a better place. Focus on spending resources on things that scale, creating more people and creating more people to help you in solving a problem. That's something too that I think is underrated that Richard does that nobody talks about is he's creating, and you can attest to this, he's creating more people like him. Mm-hmm. And if you believe his ideals are a force for good in the world and they're beneficial for you and other people that you meet and will interact with, why not? Like that's some people take that as, like I'm a very individualistic person. So, and very, first principles thinking, all this stuff. So when I say that I'm like following someone's ideals and stuff, like I'm serious about it. Like I'm not, I don't do that with very many people. Like there's very few people that I would study for hours and hours, listen to their content and really soak it in and tell people I like them and tell people about them. And very, very few people in the world with that. So to me, it's not like, you're being a sheep or something. If you listen to other people's ideals, like what there are no, like you gotta, when you're going through life, do you think people just create their own ideals and then follow those ideals? Like you're always following someone else's ideals, whether you think so or not, whether it's direct or not. You're following society's ideals. That's how you become a functioning person. So I don't get that. The criticism I hear sometimes is like, oh, just a sheeple of Richard Hart or something like that. I'm just like, I don't even know what that means. Like why wouldn't you want to follow really good ideals when you find them?
Yeah. That's interesting. It makes me think of when he speaks about, being more aware of what you're putting into your consciousness, right? Don't just be a mirror of, everything that you're taking in. So, it's like playing devil's advocate here. Like I see both sides of it, but I think that
the limiting aspect is don't just repeat things, don't just like parrot things, but like following other people's ideals. I don't see anything wrong with that, but make sure you understand them and able to debate them, in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, and also, I think it's important to have a filter, right? Like you don't want to just take in, all this information from all these different sources and and then you kind of confuse yourself. But I think it's important for us to, take in what it is that we feel most akin to, or, what makes the most sense to us, and then grow from that, right? Like take that and don't just mirror it. But there's another quote that, Richard says basically like you learn from, what was it? Is like the amateur imitates what the master improves, right?
Yes,
so improve on it. Yeah.
The master can you say it again? Just so we get it.
It's I think it's something like the apprentice imitates what the master improves. So it's like the master has taken something and has improved on it, whereas the apprentice is just copying what the master has done. Yeah.
I mean, that's a real mental model in business and stuff too, and just career of, you have senior people, you have, principal people, you have, all this hierarchy in your career too. And the people at the top are supposed to be the ones who you're paid for your judgment. Like this, the CEO of a company usually isn't doing like the groundwork. They're not like working as hard as, maybe like one of the engineers or something like that. Maybe they're working exactly the same, but the CEO is making a lot more money. Why is that? They're getting paid for their judgment. They're all the experience they have and all the pain and all the scars they have, they're getting paid. That's like compounding, and they're getting paid for it. So anyway, this is something I thought of when we were discussing that, because that's all these things, all these ideas you can apply in different fields, multidisciplinary mastery. So I had a question. We'll go on to Fix the World. If anyone wants to see time, space, and events, I'll drop it in the chat. You can read it on your leisure, but I want to make sure we have time for Fix the World as well.